Welcome back. Now, the world of pop music revolves at a fantastic speed, and the stars that rise one week can be cast into outer darkness the next. But as these stars come and glow, there's one which remains constant in the firmament. 15 years have come and gone, and there it is, untarnished by the passing of time. It's the star of my next guest, Mr. Cliff Richard. How are you, then?
Feeling a bit tarnished, actually.
Tarnished?
Yeah.
Your star is tarnished.
My star is beginning to tarnish because I think I've overdone it this autumn.
Well, I was going to talk about this week.
Oh, this week.
Which is that you've been in the Royal Command at the head of the week.
Yeah.
You've got a new film coming out and a new record in the offing.
Yeah.
What in heaven's name is there left for you to do?
Oh, well, just about everything better. I mean, you know, I think that some people often say, you know, what kind of ambitions do you have, thinking that I don't have any.
Yeah.
And in point of fact, I've always wanted to act, so I've done a bit of stage work, but it doesn't mean my ambition's completed because I know that I wasn't Sir Laurence Olivier in my plays. But then nor was he 20 years ago.
Right.
So everything...
But he isn't Cliff Richard either, is he?
Oh, no, I don't particularly want to be Laurence Olivier, but what I was saying is that there's always room for improvement, you know. So
but isn't there a danger in what you do, in the sense that you do a lot of things? You're claiming that at this stage you know you don't do all of them as well as you want to. Isn't there a danger that you might diversify too much?
Too much?
Yeah?
Well, yeah, I think one... I mean, I try to be very honest with myself, you know. For instance, I can't sing heavy music, so I don't get into it. Yeah, I don't really get into it. With plays and things, I always feel that the natural progression for a singer is to act, because after a while you begin to act your songs out anyhow. And so therefore it was a natural thing to go in and have a go at. And I wasn't bad at it. I mean, I got quite nice reviews, you know. Sometimes it was sort of like he was quite good for a pop singer. That sort of review, which isn't too bad for a pop singer.
It's a bit hurtful, though, isn't it, that? Because it means they're making allowances for you, which they wouldn't otherwise do.
They jolly well shouldn't, no. And also I find that the world seems to be very narrow-minded, the press world and everybody, because they want you to be in a bag. But I felt that... I mean, you mentioned the sort of length of my career, vaguely in passing. And I'm sure it's got something to do with the fact that I've tried a lot of things, and... I mean, they haven't all been A1 successes, but I think the audience needs to be kept interested as well as the artist.
Right. Now, you see, you've been talking about critics. Forgive me for saying this, I don't wish to be rude, but a lot of critics would not claim that you were a great powerhouse of bright invention.
No, that's right.
And yet, it's impossible for you to avoid being successful, isn't it, really?
A nice way of putting things.
Well, I mean, do you want me to, I won't withdraw it, but you know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. It's a
why?
funny thing.
Why? How do you combine these two things?
Russell, I don't know, because I know that for my TV series, for instance, I don't think I got a single good review ever, and yet our viewing was quite phenomenal for a 6:15 period, which it was.
Yeah.
And most of the things I do tend to get sort of just kind of looked at, and oh, well, you know, here it goes again, and they give it a very mild appraisal, if there's any appraisal at all. But I've realized over the years, you see, the public make up their minds anyway. I mean, I know they're sometimes guided by a critic, but when you've been around as long as I have, I mean, people already know. See, the people that don't like me, and they don't come to my concerts. But the people that have decided they do 15 years ago still come. So, in my case, I mean, I value criticism. I mean, if it's ever constructive, if they ever say something about my act and they say, well, I felt it was, you know, they should have had this number somewhere else, I'm more likely to listen to that. There's
a new film about to push itself onto the market called Take Me High. It's not like the last one I saw of yours, which is Summer Holiday.
No,
Summer Holiday was sort of relaxed and a lot of sand and everything was light and your hair floated up and down a bit.
Well, only when the grease wore off. That was rather Elvis Presley hair, and it needed Brill cream to keep it up, or whatever.
Or down. Right. But in this film, which is called Take Me High, you fetch up in Birmingham. A lot of it is placed in Birmingham, which is not exactly a sort of high romantic spot.
No, it isn't, except it is in our film, funnily enough, because the weather was so brilliant, and everything does look good when it's sunny. But one of the interesting things is that I've been offered scripts since Summer Holiday, and Young Ones and Wonderful Life and things like that, but I've had to turn them down because they've all got sort of youth clubs and red buses in them. And I really feel that I've actually done that.
Yeah.
So that when this one came up, the first thing that intrigued me was it was about merchant bankers.
Right.
And I thought, well, how can they do a musical film about merchant bankers? Then I saw the script, and it took place in Birmingham. That's the other thing that intrigued me. People don't often film in Birmingham. And
people hardly ever film in Birmingham.
No, but I don't know what they're missing, because Birmingham is really fascinating. I really couldn't believe it. I mean, we've got scenes in it on the canals there, and there's a place called Gas Street Basin, which is virtually in the centre of Birmingham, and my character decides he's not going to be living in a sort of tall block of flats. He's going to live right in the centre of the heart of things, and he gets a barge and lives on the canal, and it's really beautiful.
Well, let's take a little look at it. We're not going to see you actually on your barge or in the canal, but look at the film where you take a local councillor out for his lunch and the meal doesn't seem to have gone down very well.
Amongst the grassroots?
On the canal.
I'm sorry about this, but...
All right by me, brother. I'll eat anything if people are silly enough to pay the prices.
Was everything all right for you?
All right with me, love, but my friend here's paying, and he's a bit of a gourmet. Very unhappy.
I'd like to hear any complaints.
Oh, it wasn't as bad as all that.
Oh, come off it. You've been bitching to me about it all the time. Why don't you tell the management?
The management's better looking than you.
But we'd like to know. So what was wrong with the soup?
Dehydrated.
You chose one of the less popular things on the menu.
It's a long menu for such a small place.
You're right, and we can't cook everything.
So why put it on
the menu. I'll take the matter up. Anything else?
Well, the trout looked a bit tired of waiting. I'd have guessed it was ready at about, 10:30?
Go on.
I'm sorry, but you did ask.
And the caramel was burnt?
You said it.
I'll pass your complaints on to the chef. If you and us are short a menu, you'll have done the house a good turn.
Oh, well, I'm glad about that, because the house red was really more house than red.
Yeah. You are a bit sort of smug in that, aren't you?
I am a bit smug in that one, I must admit, but it's nice to be able to do that now and then and be part of the story and worry a few people who watch it.
Who worry about you being smug, you mean, like I am at this moment?
I mean, it is only a part, and I do get one over. I'm not so smug at the end.
And you have got paid for doing the film as well, so it's not too...
I don't think I have yet.
Now, look, when you were younger, say 15 years ago, you were the focus of attention for a lot of teenagers, weren't you? And the sort of focus of fantasy for a lot of teenagers.
Yeah.
Whom do you think you focus attention for now?
Well, I suppose it's become a far wider age range. I must admit, the concert tour that we've been doing just recently, I've noticed that the first houses in particular, it's been quite, funny really, because I've seen sort of grandmothers bringing their grandchildren along. But I would have thought that the majority of the people that knew me and liked my music would be between 18 and 35. I think that's the sort of biggest bunch. If we were to take a sort of centaur or whatever it is, as people came out of the theatre, I think it would be basically that.
You must be collecting some mums, though, towards you now, because, I mean, you're carrying people almost over a generation, aren't you?
Well, yes, I should imagine the people, I'm sure these 35-year-old people are mums and dads.
The women are mums, and the men are dads.
I think it works that way.
That's right. Talking of which, I mean, we're talking about men and women and the difference between them. One of the things that has amazed me about you is the fact that you have been absolutely clear and critical about modern pop music and about certain modern pop singers, people whom you don't like. I mean, you don't make any pretense about...
No, I don't, actually. The funny thing is, though, it's always good to do a TV show like this because it gets a chance to put things in the right perspective. Whenever I'm asked my opinions on people, like, for instance, they asked me about David Bowie and Alice Cooper, and I said, musically, they're fantastic. I mean, I don't have any Alice Cooper records, but I dig the productions that I hear on the radio. But I do have David Bowie records because I think he's a brilliant musician and writer. My knock is that I think their performances are a bit dubious. Because I mean, kids come to my show, and I know that a load of kids, say between the ages of 10 or 15, go to see them. And I feel a certain amount of responsibility as an adult in show business that a lot of these young kids come, and they're in their very formative ages. And people say, oh, it has no effect on them. And I say, well, if it has no effect, then why do it? Because obviously you're doing it for an effect, and I can only think that it can do more harm than good. I'm not saying that it directly causes harm.
But do you have any evidence of any harm that it's caused?
No, because it's only been going a short while. But I firmly believe that everything we sort of experience today sort of builds up our personality tomorrow. I mean, it's all taken in here and catched in there, and it must have some effect somewhere along the line. And it's only a theory, really, but I feel there's more in its favour. And that is that I feel that if there are a lot of young people and they do see a lot of strange things on stage, it will eventually have some kind of effect. And that some kind of effect, to me, would be more biased towards being a bad effect than it would...
What are you afraid of in it, though? I mean, apart from being responsible for them, how do you think why do you think it's necessary for you to have to state that point of view?
Because I don't think people state that point of view enough. We've got a world that we've got now because we deserve it. Because when you think about it, the things we say and do on television, on records now, are taken as normal. I mean, virtually normal. And to me, they aren't. I don't find any kind of normality in some of the performers because it's outrageous. They don't do that sort of thing normally.
But you see, who are either you or me to decide what is normal? I mean, it is normal for David Bowie to get dressed up the way he gets dressed up. It's normal for him.
Well, not if his interviews are true. I mean, he acquired that. I mean, he wasn't like that. When he did Space Oddity, he was just a guy with fizzy hair like today, and he sang a great song, and used to get rave notices for his concerts when he just used to sing his music to people. So therefore, whatever it was he acquired was an acquired thing, though. I mean, because he didn't always dress up and get made up and wear dangling earrings. So it's not a matter of even normality, really, although, you know, one could go into great detail and say, well, if we used our logic, we would all come out and say, basically, that man is man and woman is woman, and that there's a necessity for that, and it's procreation and pleasure, or whatever we want to say. So therefore, on the whole, one could come to some kind of understanding of normality. And it seems to me when you see, I mean, I haven't seen Alice Cooper. I've seen David Bowie on television when they filmed him once doing live performances and things. But Alice Cooper, you read the write-ups and it says he once, you know, chewed off the head of a live chicken and carries a python around and guillotines himself on stage. And I said to myself, well, I mean, to me, just as a sort of fairly normal citizen, it just seems outrageous. And I really don't want to...
Well, I think you make two big claims. That A, you're not a normal citizen. You're in a position of advantage and privilege. And B, I think you may be oversensitive about those areas. I mean, I wouldn't deny your right to have that.
No, I think you're right. I think I am oversensitive, but only because there are so few people who feel it at all. And, you know, this is my world as well as everybody else's.
Right.
And when I got the letters that came in for my TV show, which was they were up to 16 million viewers, most of them, 90% of the letters say, you know, we're so glad that we can sit as a family. So I'm not on my own, you see, but, you know, one suddenly becomes a spokesman, you know, and I know it's not the best position to be in. But as you say, I'm not quite a normal citizen in that I do have this fantastic privilege, as you do and as other people who appear on your show do have this privilege of being able to talk to the masses and spouting an opinion. But what I think is good about it is that I can't change anybody's mind. I can only put forward an argument, and then they've got to decide for themselves. But I think not enough people put the argument up that I try to. I mean, I'm not on my own, of course. I mean, I know that.
But you do it clearly. Although I disagree with it, you do it clearly. So that's
I try to, yeah.
Right. Now, why do you think it is that so many of our younger generation have turned recently to India, a place you know fairly well, don't you?
Well, I was born there, but I could only remember odd bits like Indian sweets and kites and all that. But I did go back just recently. I went to Bangladesh, in fact. But, and I got a little taste of Eastern religion. But
why do you think people go there, though? What is it? And do you detect anything there?
No, because when I got there, I thought, why do people want to come here? The religion and philosophy has done nothing for the country at all. In fact, it's horrifying. I met a doctor in Nepal, and he said that, you know, the religion is such that the women aren't held with great esteem. You know, it's not really a woman's religion at all. And he knows from first-hand experience that a young family, had their child, and it was a girl. The first child was a girl. And I know this is an extreme case, but it's typical of the way a lot of them think. The baby girl was useless. They didn't want the baby girl, so they just exposed it to the cold, the Himalayan airs, and it died. And I thought to myself, I mean, if their religion and their philosophy led them to that action, and all I could feel was, well, why is it people want to follow a religion that doesn't have its basis in love, not real love, which encompasses man and woman and babies of either sex? And, you know, the things I saw tended to put me off rather than turn me on. I know there's great value in meditation, though. I'm sure of that.
Do you meditate at all?
Yeah, I don't transcend, though. I mean, I think meditation... I mean, I read the Bible a lot. So my meditation just tends to be sort of looking at truths. I mean, and just reading and thinking about it and spending half an hour a day or whatever it is.
Can we talk a little bit about you in India? I mean, the facts of your life. Your parents were living there at the time, weren't they?
I was sort of...
Were they born
generation.
there?
Yeah,
they were born in India?
Yeah, my grandparents were out there during the sort of British Raj, you know. My mother's father was in the British Army, and my father's father was an engineer. So that my father was born in Burma, actually. My mother born up by the Simla Hills somewhere. And so I was really second generation born out there.
Were you wealthy out there?
Yes, every white person was wealthy out there.
Did you have servants?
Yes, we had servants, but everything was paid for, so that when we arrived in England, there was nothing. You know, because you were only rich because your company supplied a home and paid for people to cook for you and scrub your floors and paid for your food and your drink. So that when we left India, we had very few possessions of our own, and we arrived, in fact, family of 5, and £5 exactly. And if it wasn't for my grandmother, actually, we would have probably perished somewhere on the street, except you can't do that in England, can you? But it was really, really hard to come from there. And one great sort of memory I have, really, a horrible memory, is that my mother cried a lot. And I think it's because she had such an easy life out there that it really hurt to come over here and find that she was up to here in housework and things, she just wasn't used to.
How much do you think your present success and continuing success is due to that period of poverty? I mean, did you make a big blinding decision at that time? You know, like Scarlett O'Hara makes at the end of Gone with the Wind, I vow I will never go hungry again.
No, I can't remember doing anything quite sort of romantic as that. I mean, I just remember putting up with it, and I remember growing up very close to my mum and dad, and being sort of told the position of poverty and all that, and how near the breadline we were, and just being brought into it. But I never really made any great sort of promises to myself. All I know is that from very early age, I got very interested in sort of music that was the pop thing of its time, and then it was sort of the nearest you got to what we've got today, sort of Rosemary Clooney and Teresa Brewer, and when Bill Haley and Elvis came along, I mean, it was just a different world, but immediately I knew what I'd like to do. I'd like to sing.
Elvis is a big hero, is he?
He still is, yeah. I still think he sings really well. I don't always like the choice of his songs now, and I didn't always like all his films, but he was such an influence on me that I can't stop being a fan.
Have you ever met him?
No, I never did. Although the very first year I was in show business, I went to Italy on holiday, and we drove back through Germany, and actually went to Elvis's house, and blow me down, he'd gone to Paris. So I never did get anywhere.
I wonder if Elvis has any Cliff Richard records.
I shouldn't think so, because I'm not really very well known. In fact, I'm hardly known in America at all. My nearest claim to fame there is that one year, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was voted best known unknown.
Well, after the programmes that you can take, there are 20 American ladies sitting there on the front, so after this is finished, you can go and
I'll introduce myself to them,
and suck them in the teeth at the same time, I think. Why do you think you're not a big name in America?
It's difficult to tell, really, other than the first thing that comes up is that they don't like my records, which is the obvious answer.
Good enough, really.
I've made so many that have been hits everywhere else that we've always gone with the records that
I can be sure of is that you're not going to lie awake at night wondering about why it's not catching on in America when it catches on everywhere else.
Not really, no. I had one of my best holidays there, so in a way it's good not to be known there.
That's right.
Because people kept asking me, what do I do for a living?
What did you say?
Oh, well, I said, I sing, and because it's so difficult to explain, that you've had a career elsewhere.
Right.
Barbers and all that. You know how barbers talk. And they're always saying, well, what do you do for a living? And I really find it really embarrassing. And in sauna baths and things like that, blokes say, what do you do for a living? I say, I sing.
You can't explain that you're a legend in this country, can you?
I don't know if that's quite true, Mike.
Well, a lot of people are tittering in a recognitive kind of way, which means that it is.
Well, I think if years made you a legend, then I think I am. But I don't know about that, you see, because it takes a lot to be a legend.
Well, baby, you're heading that way. Cliff Richard, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but before we go home, here is the living legend Cliff Richard to sing a song from his musical. It's called Take Me High. Cliff Richard.